right, good day, good day, good day. Welcome YouTube. Hope you guys are absolutely winning in your life. We are going to be starting our 26th, that's a 2 and a 6, 26th edition of our Family Bible and Breakfast session. I hope you guys are ready. If you're not ready, just go into the comments and just write something that will get you ready. And if you are ready, then you can say, let's go in the comments, all right? So we're starting with the question, what is value to you? Okay, and in the house we've already got some very powerful answers, such as something that's tangible, something that's thought-provoking, something that's causing you to reflect, something like growth, something like a gift. This particular fellowship, all right, if you believe that, you can receive that. Also something that's rare, something that's truth, something that's added to you, something that helps you to improve, gives you a new lens, something that equips you, something that produces advancement, something that helps you build, and something that is transformational. Now we're going to keep asking the question right here. If you got answers in YouTube, please feel free to let us know in the chat what is value to you, because today we're going to be talking about value, but in a very unique way. So fasten your seatbelt. All right, so let's take a couple more answers. Let's take three more answers, and then we'll jump straight into today's session. We're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, and today we've got something to share that if you ain't ever heard me share, I think you're going to get value from this one. Let's go. All right, so anyone else? Who else? What is value to you? I'm looking specifically at the people who haven't answered yet, so.
Yeah, my one got taken to be fair.
That's cool.
It's something that puts you on a different trajectory from where you were.
New trajectory, love that. Even though I don't know how to spell that. And I'll just also write new path, because I know how to spell that. Alright, cool. New trajectory, new path, love that. Alright, let's keep going. Jason, Sister Nana, anything you guys want to add? All right. This is real good, man. This is real good. And you know why I think this is so exciting for me right now? Is because we use the word value a lot. We talk about the word value a lot, especially like people in the circles that I'm in. The word value is used a lot. But what does it actually mean to you? Does that make sense? What does it actually mean to you? It's easy to say words. But if you don't know what those words mean, if you don't have an understanding of those words, if you don't have a depth to those words, then really when you're speaking, you're not even saying anything. Does that make sense? You know, imagine that. Imagine speaking and not saying anything, and then flip to the other side where the Bible says that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and he who loves it will receive that thing. Like, you got to think about that. I got to fall in love with what I'm saying out of my mouth. But more importantly, I've got to fall in love with the impact and effect that it creates. So if I fall in love with that, I'm happy to keep speaking like that. I'm happy to keep being like that. I'm happy to keep orating like that and sharing like that. So it's powerful. Let's go. Worthiness. I love that. I love that. I love that. The reason I love that is because as you say that, Sister Nan, it's like there's this massive question in my head, and it's like, well, who determines worthiness? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know, like, growing up, I was around a lot of young ladies who lacked self-worth. And in my mind, it's like, why are you lacking self-worth? Like, you're beautiful. Why are you lacking self-worth? You're intelligent. Why are you lacking self-worth? You got opportunity. I couldn't get it. Do you know what I'm saying? But some people lack certain things, even though when external entities look at them, they're like, you're worthy. So that's powerful. That's powerful. Jason, you want to add the last one before we move on? Or anyone else want to share?
The ones I had were already mentioned.
All right, cool. Anyone else? Why are you laughing?
Yeah, it is. Anyone else?
Well, I don't know. You ain't shared, Queen, have you?
No, is it the question now?
Yeah.
Something that can be exchanged.
Alright, something that can be exchanged. I love that as well. You've been reading my notes too much. Alright, cool. Alright, so I think all of these answers are profound. I think all of these answers are powerful. And all of these answers are going to help us in terms of conceptualizing where we're going with this in today's session. So I hope you guys are absolutely ready for that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump into Ecclesiastes chapter 10. I'm going to share some stuff with you, and I've got a title, but I'm going to start probably not giving you guys the title anymore, because I'm reading this book which is really kind of interesting, and it's just something I'm picking up from that book anyway. So let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 10. We're going to read a few verses in here. We're going to be reading from verse 5 to verse 7. For those of you who like to take notes, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 5 to verse 7. And then from there, we're going to really jump into it. We're going to really jump into it. And I'm going to show you today how value literally drives your victory. Okay? And I want you to be mindful of that. Like, I just feel like I gotta just break it down right now. Alright, let me just share some stuff, right? So Monday coming at 7 p.m. on my YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, I'm gonna be dropping a video, right? And the video, the title of the video is Why You Cannot Lose. Yeah, why you cannot lose. Like, you cannot lose. Alright? Now, some of you who have been on our 5-day cash flow creation challenge, you would have heard me talk about this, because in the challenge, I define what a challenge is. And when I define what a challenge is, I say to you that a challenge, one of the sentences in the definition is a challenge is something that will infiltrate, it will frustrate, but ultimately it is there to elevate, Mrs ICanWin. It ultimately is there to elevate your life. So that's one line out of my definition of a challenge. A challenge is not comfortable. Why? Because it infiltrates. Like, you might tell someone, oh, you should come and join my challenge. Oh, yeah, I know I should. Yeah, You see, because they're not used to good things infiltrating their life, they think, oh, I don't need to join the challenge. They think, oh, I'm just going to keep going to work. I'm just going to keep doing my thing. And then one day, like what we were saying earlier, it's funny, kids come back to what we were saying earlier. One day, like, everything they want is going to show up. Like, the things you want aren't going to show up. The things you want are already there. Like, yeah, man, that was like a mic drop sell moment, innit? Like, I just heard it after you guys heard it. But that's the reality. The things you want are not going to show up. The things you want are already there. And the reality is, if you start to understand that, you stop thinking you have to show up. And you start thinking, how do I get there? Like yesterday, I think a lot of you guys missed that. So yesterday in the Wealth and Words call, the title or the call was about, where is your wealth? Where is your wealth? And the funniest thing is, when you start understanding my wealth is somewhere, you start thinking you have to show up. And you start thinking, I need to locate my wealth. And when you locate your wealth, you can just be in the place where wealth is going to be. So, like, in a real simple snapshot of kind of some of the stuff I broke down yesterday, let me help you. Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, okay? I'm just going to paraphrase and show you guys. Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, it says, Matthew chapter 6 from verse 20, it says there's all these things that people are interested in, but don't worry about them. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. Don't worry about your body. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about what you're going to drink. So all that stuff's in Matthew 6, yeah? I'm not making this up, right? Cool. Then he says, listen, he says, the reason you shouldn't worry about, like, what your bank account's doing, that's how I interpret it. And I'm going to tell you why I interpret it like that. Because Jesus didn't use the word bank account. But the reason I interpret it like this is because he uses 3 words which relate to money, wealth, finances, business, success, and your bank account. All right? And he says, look at the birds. He said, those birds do not sow, they do not reap, and they do not store. And most people store their money in a bank account, right? So to me, Jesus was talking business talk right there. He was saying, listen, you want to make the bank, you want to get the bag, but hold on a minute. Don't you realize that birds, they can't do 2, 3 things that are principles in the scripture, but they still get what they need? Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm seeing Jesus basically break this down. And then he goes, well, if you're one of them people who are thinking, all right, cool, God, you got me on the bank thing, you got me on the bank thing, all right, cool, money's not the thing, right? But then he goes, well, hold on a minute, if you're one of them guys, like, let's say the Congolese maybe, yeah? Thinking about your clothes and that, yeah? All right? Because Congolese people like to dress well. One of my close friends is a pastor, he's a Congolese pastor, he likes to dress well, right? Am I right or am I wrong? Yeah. All right? Yeah? They will outdress you, all right? So let's say you're thinking from a clothing perspective. Jesus now says, listen, let me tell you about clothes. You're trying to be the best dressed. You're trying to be the freshest dressed. Let me tell you something about that. Do you know a flower, a lily, is dressed better than Solomon? Yes. And Solomon was the wisest man, richest man of his day and time. I don't know if you understand what that means. Jesus is trying to tell you, listen, this ain't just about money and business I'm talking to you about. This is about every area of your life. You don't have to worry about it. And then what does he say in Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, the famous verse that everybody knows but doesn't actually really knows what it's saying? He says, but seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things which them man are looking for will be added unto you. What that means is, added unto you, what that means is, that's not the main thing you need to get. It's going to be added, it's going to be given as a supplementary accessory. It's like when we're doing the challenge and we're like, oh, come join the challenge and we're going to give you this and we're going to give you this and we're going to give you this and we're giving them all these bonuses. Like those bonuses are just extras. But someone's going to call me like Remy called me 3 years ago and be like, Samuel, that 101 property sourcing secrets, that 3-hour program, I took one of those secrets and I made £1,000 a month. Like, they're extras. Like, let me say this because I want us to understand this. The fact something's an extra don't mean it's not valuable. Does that make sense? Like some people get lost in the source sometimes. They don't realize that, oh, it comes with this bonus and that bonus and that bonus. So they just think like, them bonuses are just like this is what it is. We've been so deceived that we think everything's like McDonald's. So in McDonald's, you go buy your chicken sandwich and they ask, you want fries with that? And you get that extra and you think, oh, it's just extra. It's not going to add anything to me. Like there are some environments of value where the extras can be more valuable than the actual thing you bought. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just sharing with you guys that on Thursday night, I'm having a conversation with someone who's making multiple millions of dollars in a month. Now, hopefully you guys understand that's an extra to the fact that I joined a program being run by someone who makes multiple millions of dollars a month. Does this make sense? That's an extra. I don't know if I'm conveying this strong enough, so I'm going to move on. So Matthew chapter 6 verse 33 says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. So what does that tell you? All right? It tells you a concept that I taught yesterday in the Wealth and Words call, that wealth and riches are attracted to heaven. They're not attracted to anything else. They're attracted to heaven. So I got taught this principle when I was about 19 years old by a pastor, and I used to think, wow, that's a powerful principle. But then first, the Lord helped me to develop that principle and see how it actually goes to a third level. But then next, what the Lord's done is actually helped me see that principle in life so deeply that now I can work it for myself. So here's the principle. The principle is, if you go to church, most churches are so intact, so connected, and so familiar with the person of Jesus. And the person of Jesus will give you salvation, eternal life, and all those good stuff that people want to wait for, right? Keyword, wait for, right? But then, if you go look in the business world, you will see people that are operating with the principles of Jesus. And the principles of Jesus are all of the things he spoke about in the word that allow you to live in heaven on earth. So you don't have to wait for anything. So if you fully engage with Christ, what you get is you get the best of both. You get heaven on earth and heaven in the life to come. How do you think these apostles, these disciples were saying, it don't matter if you hang me? It don't matter. How do you think John the Baptist was in prison? Like, okay, let's do this thing. Like, why do you, like, the reason they lived like that is because they had something stronger than what was going on in this world to deject them, to tear them down, to destroy them, to create destruction and doubt. They had something so much stronger. So they didn't even care about what was going on. It didn't mean enough. It's not going to stop them. It's not going to slow them down. It's not going to be a disadvantage to them. It just is what it is. But I know whose I am. So I know who I am, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm cracking on. So all wealth is attracted to heaven, which is what I was teaching yesterday in the Wealth and Words call, which is interesting because if you go to Proverbs, like there's so much, like basically the lesson yesterday, there was a lot, right? But the point is all wealth is attracted to heaven. So here's the thing that's interesting. If you know all wealth is attracted to heaven, why are you still living on earth? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
Like, why are you still trying to practice, oh, everything's like McDonald's? Like, do you get what I'm trying? Like, you can't practice earth. Like, I even go deep. Like yesterday, one of the verses I shared, it was in the book of James. In James says something so powerful. He says, no, that wisdom is earthly, is sensual, is devilish. Earthly, first world, earthly. It's wisdom of this earth. It's sensual, it's devilish. It's literally going to lead you to hell. Because that's where the devil's going to end up. I want you guys to understand, like when you operate with earthly principles, like you're operating on a one-way ticket to hell. You need to start operating with heavenly principles. This is why Jesus was telling us in Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, you have to seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and that stuff gets added as a byproduct because you're not operating with earthly principles. So everything in earth that's of value is attracted to heaven. So when you operate with heavenly principles, guess what happens? Everything on earth that's of value is attracted to you. And people are like, wow, like, I don't know why I just want to sow into your ministry. I don't know why I just want to be a part of what you're doing. I don't know about your challenge, but I just want to be on your challenge. Like, why do you think that happens? It happens because you operate with heavenly principles and people realize what you're doing seems out of this world.
Yes.
Like, it is out of this world. It's heavenly. Does this make sense? Am I making sense to somebody? So yeah, that was yesterday anyway. So let's jump into today, right? So today we're going to be talking about value. So today we're going to be talking. We haven't started, bro. We said Ecclesiastes 10. We said Ecclesiastes 10. We ain't started, bro. So
That was the idea.
maybe. I don't even know, man. Entree. What did you give me just now? You said starter. This is a starter. Maybe it's a start. Let's go. So in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, and the reason I had to break that down, I don't even know why I had to break that down. Maybe someone just needed that. But here's the reality. It don't show up when you show up. It's already there. It doesn't show up when you show up. It's already, listen, this is, the Lord said something powerful. He said, humble yourself and you'll be exalted. Do you know what that means? That means you got to realize it don't show up when I show up. I've got to humble myself. And as I humble myself, it allows me to get exalted, get elevated, get exponential growth, get exponential results. Why? Because I've humbled myself. I've realized it don't show up when I show up. So now I'm open enough, I'm listening enough, I'm going to find out like what's going on, what's really going on. Like let me tell you something. Humble people can get exalted because they want to know what's going on. Proud people can't get lifted up, can't get exalted. You know what? They don't want to know what's going on. Let me tell you the reality. They think they're what's going on. That's that whole when I show up. Oh, when I show up, that's when it starts. Like, they don't start the meeting until I show up. Like, they can't do that. Because I'm me. Like, but they're them. Like, here's the funniest thing. Like, I don't even drop it like this, but you know, like, you can have a couple, yeah? Like a man and a woman, right? And let's say they're sitting in the car and they're driving somewhere. And the woman's like, turn the heating off. Like, do you know there's an implicit assumption when that statement is made? That implicit assumption is, you feel how I feel. Or the implicit assumption is, how I feel is more important than how you feel. Oh, I see ladies smiling already.
And the men smiling.
No, the men is smiling, bro.
Smiling.
And here's the thing. I'm not even sending for anyone. Here's the thing. I'm not even sending for anyone. But if you felt it, I want you to feel it. You know what I'm saying? Value. Hashtag. Maybe it's transformational. Maybe it's building something. Maybe it's advancing you. Maybe it's equipping you. Maybe it's giving you a new lens. Maybe it's improving you. Maybe it's adding to you. Maybe it's truth.
Maybe it's just tangible, they're feeling it.
Maybe it's just tangible. But you guys hearing what I'm saying? That listen, I want you to understand this. Listen, my wife is my sweetheart. My wife is she. Let me not get there. But I want you to understand this. I want you to understand. If I'm sitting in a car and my wife, for example, says, "Turn the heating off," I'm gonna turn the heating off. I'm just telling you. I'm gonna turn the heating off. But I'm not an idiot. I'm not oblivious to what that just means. That means you think how you feel is more important than how I feel. That means you think there's something about you that is way more important to not even have to check in with me. And that must be only ever rooted in pride. Do we understand what I'm talking about here? Because, listen, I want you guys to get this so clearly. Some people think the reason they're not where they want to be is because of someone or something else. It's not about someone. It's not about something else. It's sometimes 9 times out of 10 how you see yourself. Because you think you're the thing. How are you going to get more if you think you're already enough? You got to just think like, bro, your cup's full. How am I going to pour into you? Bro, I don't need what you got, bro. I'm going to show late. Bro, I don't need what you got, man. I'm not joining your class. Like, bro, you're messing yourself up. You're doing that to yourself. And then you're going to go and complain to the world. Or even worse, because this is the one I see the most, complain to God. When God's like, I set this whole thing up for you. I've had people trying to help you from day. I've had people trying to tell you, change your way. I've had people trying to tell you, get equipped. I've had people to advance you, people to build you, people to transform you. I've got people that are tangibly producing these results and you don't want their help. And now, oh, all hell's breaking loose and now you want to go seek their help. Well, here's the thing. The people who did it, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell you something my coach told me once. It hurt me, it hurt me. I probably said it here before, but it hurt me. You know, 9 times out of 10, the people who want it the most, they're usually the people who don't end up getting it. It's not about whether you want it. Are you going to do what it takes to get it? Because they're 2 different groups of people. There's people that want it. Oh, bro, I want this thing, man. I want this. I want that financial freedom. But, oh my gosh, don't let me get me. Like, when I start talking about financial freedom and stuff, I start thinking about my training. Don't get me started. When you see people come on the program, I want this. I want this. This is for me. This is for me. Like, you give them an opportunity. That bro, I thought you wanted this thing. I thought you wanted this thing. I thought you wanted this thing. Now, I'm not saying that to say that that's it. I'm just giving that as an example because that's so tangible for me. But I want you to extrapolate that idea and see it in your life. The people that have said to you, no, I want it. Like, if you're single, you might have had a person in a relationship. We're going to the end. I want to marry you. Okay, cool. But you're acting like an idiot. You're acting like you're going to be single forever. And I'm telling you, level up. And you're not leveling up. I'm trying to help you transform, build, advance. You're not advancing. You're not building. You're not transforming. And then when I say, no, you know what? I'm gonna go do single. Because I'm going to make that work for now. You got a problem? You should they have a problem? How can they have a problem? They're being ignorant if they've got a problem. They're being ignorant of the fact that they need to level up. They're being ignorant of the fact that their cup isn't full, even though they think it's full. Does this make sense? Let's finally get into the scriptures, innit? Even though we've already kind of been in the scriptures, but let's go deeper. Ecclesiastes chapter 10. Hope you guys are listening. Verse 5, we'll start there. Value drives your victory. Whew, thank you, Lord. I was so off track there. I'm just going to bring it all back. All right, so I literally forgot about half the things I said to you guys. Yeah? So let me give you guys what I was trying to give you. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 5. Let me give you what I was actually trying to give you. Apologies. So Monday, I don't know how we went there. On Monday at 7 p.m. on my YouTube channel, we're going to release a video. The video is called Why You Cannot Lose. Everyone remember we were there, right? We were there, right? All right, so let me make it make sense now. So in that video, one of the things I explained is, that's what happened. I started talking about property. If I start talking about property, it just goes on and on. That's what happened. I started talking about the challenge. All right, so let's go back. So on Monday, we're going to drop this video. Now, I then said, those of you who've been on our challenge, you know my definition for the word challenge, and then I started to break down one line out of the definition of the word challenge. But here's what I really wanted to bring out. I wanted to bring out the fact that in that video, I talk about the fact, those of you who've been on the challenge, you know on day 5, we talk about cash flow creation success, and I define success. And one of the things I say about success is everything God created was created for success. And it's basically the framework around this whole video that's being released on Monday at 7 p.m. Now, why is it so important? Let me tell you why it's so important. Everything that's been created was created for success, right? Fish were created to swim, and what do they do? All right, birds were created to fly, and what do birds do? All right, so in my definition for success, in our cash flow creation challenge, I break down that everything God ever created was created for success, and the only thing that doesn't succeed every single day is human beings. And the only reason human beings don't succeed every single day is because we have choice. Birds have no choice. And guess what happens? They succeed every single day. Fish have no choice. And guess what happens? They succeed every single day. Human beings only can fail because we have choice. So in the video that's dropping on Monday, one of the things I break down is this. You were created for success, which means you cannot fail. And in the video is basically called Why You Cannot Lose, all right? So some of you are sitting there thinking, but Samuel, you just said human beings can fail because we get choice. Okay, so check this out. You may fail what you were intended to do, but you do not fail in what you end up doing. Oh, explain. All right, cool. So let me use the concept I use in the video because this is a simple way, right? So imagine you were created for success. So whatever you put your hand to is going to succeed. But let's say a person joins a losing team, a team that's destined to lose. So that person succeeds in losing. Does this make sense? That's the human conundrum. The human conundrum, and it's scary, but once you understand it, your life will change, is you are going to win. That's the human conundrum. You, my brother, you, my sister, are guaranteed to win.
Have something.
Whatever you choose.
Boom. Boom. I let the light bulbs go off. I let you guys define it. You are guaranteed to win. This is why Jim Rohn would say, in a beautiful, eloquent way, he would say, if I see what, no, he says, if you show me what you do, I'll tell you what you're going to become. Simply. This is why, I'll give you a Myron Golden. This is why Myron Golden says success and failure are both automatic. This is why John Maxwell says your success is hidden in your daily routine. This is why Zig Ziglar used to have his own version of that line. All of them have got a line like that, and it all means the same stuff. What it means is you're guaranteed to succeed. But what are you doing? Because if you're on a losing team, you're going to succeed to lose. And we've got to understand this. Because if you understand what value is, when you see value, I would encourage you not to choose something else. Because if you choose something else, you're going to succeed in that something else. When actually you could succeed in transforming yourself. Here's the thing that's interesting about so many of the things you guys shared, which you wrote on the board. Like, I don't think any of these things are like easy. And when I say easy, I don't mean easy in terms of Jim Rohn's definition. Jim Rohn's definition of easy is anything you can do. And when you think about that, that makes so much sense. Like, if I can actually do it, then it must be easy, right? So that's his definition of easy. But that's not what I mean. But that is kind of what I mean. Like, because all of these things are things you can do. You can transform. You can be transformed. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you can have your mind renewed, right? But most people don't. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, here's the funniest thing. All right, let me ask this question, and you don't need to show me your answer, but I'm going to assume your answer, right? And I might be wrong. That's okay. It doesn't really matter if I'm right or wrong about my assumed answer. But I just want you to follow me on this thread because it's going to help all of us. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, so here we go. You got X amount of books in your house, and you just hear about this book, and you're like, I'd love to buy that book. You maybe even go on Amazon and look at that book. And you're like, I think I need this book. But then you hear a voice which says, but I've got so many books in my house that I haven't read yet, and then you don't buy the book. You with me, yeah? You see that person, do you know that person has chosen to leave the value? Can you agree on that? Now I can tell you that story. You know why? That used to happen to me again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Like, from the age, let me put it this way, between the age of 19 and 24, that probably happened to me over 1,000 times. Because that was my years of like, I'm reading everything. And I'd buy a book, and I'd be like, okay, cool. I might get like 10 pages in, and then I'd stop, and then it's like another book, it's like, oh, I'm gonna buy another book. And I don't know about interviews, like if you listen to Dr. Mike Murdoch, or if you used to listen to Dr. Mike Murdoch, oh my gosh, you're in trouble. Because that guy writes books daily, and he recommends books daily too. So if you're listening to him, like I used to listen to a lot of Dr. Mike Murdoch when I first came into the kingdom. This every single, this is why I wrote this book. Yeah, this is why I wrote this book. Oh, go get this book bundle. Like, man selling bundles of books. When he came to London, he didn't sell a book. He sold a box. Oh, someone's laughing because you guys weren't there. That's why. I left with like 3 boxes because the guy wants he. Oh, you don't know Dr. Mike? Oh, okay, it's okay, right? Dr. Mike Murdoch doesn't sell books. He sells boxes. Oh, you need the leadership series. The leadership series is 14 books and 2 sets of CDs. So you're buying boxes. And I started realizing, man, I'm not reading all of this stuff. I'm only reading 1 at a time, and I'm getting like 8 at a time. But you know what I started to realize? The value that I was storing up inside of me was dwindling. The reason it was dwindling is because I was seeing value at a pace faster than I was embracing it. You like, can I share a secret with you guys? You don't know your capacity. Apologies, but that changed my life when I realized that. Samuel, you don't know your capacity.
Wow.
Here's the funniest thing. I used to read 7 books at a time, right? And I'd say to my mum, like, oh, I'm reading this, I'm reading that, and and my mum would say, no, stop. Don't read 7 books at a time. Just read one. You know why? My mum doesn't know my capacity. And, you know, we've all done it to different people in different ways, in different shapes, in different forms. I'm not knocking my mum. I'm just saying that's reality. We hold people on their journey of success because we don't know their capacity. Assuming we know their capacity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It happens on another level as well. Like you're going through a drama with someone and you keep pushing the drama, you keep pushing the drama, you keep pushing. You don't know if that person's going to jump off a cliff tomorrow because you kept pushing the drama. Because you don't know a person's capacity. Whether it be for positive or for negative. Like don't mess with people. Play with yourself. Does that make sense? Like you know you've got a better grip on your capacity than you have on anyone else's capacity, even though you don't know your capacity. So when you understand that, you stop messing with people. You start, oh, you can't read this, you can't read that. No. And you just start telling people, read this, read this, read this, read this, read this. This is why now I look back, I'm like, wow, Doctor might help me. He selling me those books, that box, he helped me because he was allowing me to discover my capacity. Does that make sense? So, you cannot lose is the video we're going to drop on Monday, which will help you as a foundation to where we're going today. Everyone with that?
Yes, sir.
Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 5. Let's go. Value drives your victory. Watch this. And now it makes sense. Well, hopefully, now it should make sense, right? When I say value drives your victory, right?
Yeah.
Does it all add up now?
Yeah.
Because if you can't lose, then the things of value to you are driving the areas of victory for you.
Yeah.
So if your bank account is not victorious in the way you want it to be, it's victorious in another way, in a broke, busted, disgusted way, that's because your values are attached to that broke, busted, disgusted way. Does this make sense? All right. Yeah, that was helpful. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 5 to 7. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun. Where's under the sun? That is the earth, right? There's an evil which I've seen on the earth. Watch this. Let's keep going. As an error. Okay, what's an error? A mistake. A mishap. Something that shouldn't be like that. Watch this. Which proceedeth from the ruler. So this is saying this is a mistake that even comes from the top. So, oh wow, this is weird. Okay, those of you using the YouTube board, we're being told that the battery on the laptop is low, which doesn't make sense because the laptop is charged in. But yeah, we can't help you if we can't help you. But it's still good. All right. Let's just see. Let's keep going. So, an error which proceeded from the ruler. Now, the fact that it proceeds from the ruler means this is a mistake, but it's not a mistake. Does that make sense? It comes from the top. So, it's not going to stop happening. It's not something just poor people are doing and it might be eradicated. This is something that's coming from the top. Let's go deeper. Verse 6. Folly is set in great dignity. So now you're going to start understanding why Solomon was saying this is an error. Because folly, do we understand what it says here? Folly is found in, is esteemed or is found in great dignity. Does everyone understand what that means? That means foolishness is looked at like it's value. We get that, right? So now you understand why Solomon's like, no, there's some error happening here. This on earth, this shouldn't be happening. Why should this be happening? Why should foolish things be seen like they're powerful, right? I want you to follow this because what you get here is value on a whole nother level, right? He says, folly is set in great dignity and the rich sit in low place. Like, he's telling you what I was saying to you. There are people who have the riches, who have the resources, who have the value, but they're esteemed as low. They're esteemed as, oh, what does he know? Oh, he's not like. I'm gonna give you an example, which I think will really help. Right, this is gonna help all of us. Like Bill Gates. Like over the last couple of years, oh, this guy, he's part of the Illuminati, he's in the vaccine thing. Like people say all this negative stuff about him, right? Am I right or am I wrong? Yeah. I'm not making this up, right? He's got all these videos out there about all these conspiracies or whatever. Like I don't know if they're conspiracies. I don't know if like I'm not into the politics, yeah? Because his surname is not ICanWin, so I don't care. Alright? But the point I'm making is there's all this stuff out there about him, right? But listen to this. This guy's one of the richest men in the world. So do you know what that means? That means he fits the bill of what we're talking about right here, that Solomon basically explained. He is rich, but he's seen as low. You know what? Here's the funniest thing. I learned this lesson years ago. I was around 21. It changed my life. You can't learn from anyone you despise. You can't learn from anyone you despise. Your brain, your heart will reject anything that someone you despise says. So you can't learn from someone you despise. And this is what Solomon's telling you. He's telling you value is looked at as low. Like, let me tell you something. If you are one of the richest men in the world, there's something I can learn from you. Does that? Solomon was the richest man in the world, bro. There's something I can learn from him. Now, he was a man who was, for the majority of his life, focused on God. So the point I'm making is, he didn't choose, oh, I'm focused on God, I'm going to choose to be poor. He allowed himself to be rich. He didn't get all these riches and give it away and say, no, I need to be poor to follow Christ and be righteous. No. So I want you to understand, if you're one of the richest men in the world, there is something I can learn from you. It might not be morality, it might not be spirituality, but there's something I can learn from you. But this is what Solomon is telling you. This is why it's so deep when you start to understand that your value drives your victory. Some people are victoriously poor because of their values driving that victory for them. Instead of them realizing I need to change my values so I can change where I'm getting victory. Let's go deeper. Verse 7. Watch this. I've seen servants upon horses. Alright? Now the reason he's saying this, you may not know this, but in that time, that's like an oxymoron. A servant don't ride on the horse. The servant stands next to the horse whilst the owner rides on the horse. Yeah? And watch this. He says, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. So what Solomon's telling us in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 5 to 7, he said, you know what? One of the things I've noticed about this earth is a whole lot of stuff is backwards. This is what he's telling you. A whole lot of stuff is backwards. A whole lot of stuff is backwards. A whole lot of stuff that's not valuable is actually treated like it's valuable. And a whole lot of stuff that is actually valuable is actually treated like it's trash. Value drives your victory. You see, some of us are having victory in areas we don't want to be victorious in. And what we haven't realized is it's only because we have values attached and associated to having victory in that area. Let's break this down. So much stuff. So there's a lesson I teach on our challenge. I'm going to share it with you guys. It's going to help you. The lesson is called Why We Must Move. We'll come on to it. Alright? So I'm just going to ask you guys a series of questions which will help you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Alright? You see, when I grew up, if you wanted to listen to music, we listened to music on a record. Alright? Listen to music on a record. Alright? Now, here's the interesting thing about a record. Let's say there's a person, let's make it a man with a bit of hair. Let's say there's a person who works in a record store. Okay? There's a guy. Let's give this guy a name. What's his name? Dave, right? So Dave works in a record store. Okay? Dave's been working in a record store literally for 30 years. Now here's the interesting thing. When I grew up, if I wanted to listen to music, I'd listen to it on a record. My dad would play a record, right? But here's the funniest thing. After 30 years, records went out of fashion. They don't use records anymore. And we started using cassette tapes. Okay? Anyone old enough to know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Alright? I'm not alone, right? Cool. And we started using cassette tapes. Now here's the interesting thing. when we start using cassette tapes, I'm gonna ask you a question. What would happen to Dave's job? He works in a factory where they make records. Now we use cassette tapes, are we still making records? We're not making records anymore. So what happens to his knowledge base? Obsolete, redundant. Okay, let me tell you what literally happens to his knowledge base. It becomes moldy. You know what mold is, right? It's like it don't matter what you've got over time. Like Jesus said something powerful. He said, "Don't store up." Matthew chapter 6. Don't store up treasures for yourself on earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt. So his knowledge base becomes corrupt. Darryl said it earlier. Tyrone just said it now. It becomes obsolete. It becomes obsolete. It becomes obsolete. It becomes obsolete. It becomes no longer of value.
Is that the power again?
Yeah, it's saying the battery is low, but I don't know why. And I don't want to pull the mic out. So we. One, two. Yeah, so that was trying to help you guys on YouTube. So we just literally switched the charger. Hopefully that will help. Alright, so Dave's job, Dave's mentality, Dave's mindset, his skill set becomes moldy, it becomes obsolete. That makes sense, right? Yeah. Alright, so in the tape era, if I'm going to use the skill set I use to create records, to create tapes, that's not going to work, right? Because I use a skill set to create records which can't be used to create tapes, right? Yes. So as a result, that means it also becomes void. What's up, Queen? It shouldn't have done that because it's still streaming. So if it's frozen, it's just frozen because of the internet connection. So hopefully they'll catch up. And if not, still cool. We're going to do what we're doing. Disruption follows intention, but we're not there. All right, so cassette tapes, right? So his information has become moldy, it's become obsolete, it's become void, all right? So as a result, his information has expired. Does that make sense to everyone? All right? Now here's the thing that's really even more interesting for me, right? So when I was young, my dad would have all these records. That's how we listened to music. Then as I got older, we started listening to tapes. But here's the funniest thing. Tapes didn't stay around as long as records. Tapes only stayed around for like 20 years. And the thing with tapes is they were taken out by CDs. We call them compact discs, for those of you who don't know what CD actually stands for, right? That's a CD in a case, all right, just to be clear. So it got taken out by CDs, right? So we started listening to music on CDs. Is everyone with me? Is that correct? Yeah? They've got audio, it's fine, you don't have to check it. Well, if it's not frozen, they'll have audio. Alright? So we ended up going into CDs. Now, straight after going into CDs, here's another interesting thing. Alright? We came out of CDs, because CDs didn't last as long as tapes. CDs only last for 10 years, roughly. And then we started going into what we call the MP3 era. Okay, and now we're even past that. Now we're in vaporware, and most of you don't know what vaporware is. But literally, now we're in a shared music economy. You get your Spotify account, etc. You don't even own the music anymore. You just own the account, and they host it. And does that make sense, right? So the point I'm making is we're progressed onto new eras and new eras and new eras and new eras and new eras. Does this make sense to everybody? Yeah. So we've gone from the record era, which lasted about 30 years, to the cassette tape era, which lasted around 20 years, to the CD era, which lasted about 10 years, to the MP3 era, which probably was only around for like 5 years. Now, if you're like me, you see patterns. And what's the pattern you start to see? You start to see that every era is preceded by another era, which doesn't even last as long as the era before. So what does this teach you? This should teach you that you have to move with the times. Can you stop doing that, please? This teaches you you've got to move with the times. The reason you have to move with the times is because if you don't move with the times, your knowledge becomes moldy. Your knowledge becomes obsolete. Your knowledge becomes void, and then it literally expires. And here's the funniest thing. This is why we're able to succeed in property. This is why we're able to help people succeed in property. It's because we don't teach them about records in a time when no one's using records. But here's something that most people don't know. One thing I've been saying for years is property money is old money. What that means is, statistically, the majority of people that own property are over the age of 50, statistically. So the most amount of properties are owned by people that are older, statistically. But what most people don't realize is what that actually means. What that actually means, when you understand why you have to move with the times, is that most people who are doing property like this. A few of them are doing it like this. Most of them are in this world. So you have an unfair advantage if you understand the era we're in. And you can leverage the era we're in order to take full advantage and make more money. Right? Now, should I give you guys an example? Now, I'm using property as an example, but the reason I'm using property as an example, that's the field I'm in. I want you to extrapolate the ideas I'm talking about and apply it to your life so you understand I've got to move with the times. I can't be acting like I'm working in a record store. No one's listening to records anymore. No one's making records anymore. It's funny, as I'm saying this, maybe because I just looked at Darren, obviously he sat with Tyrone, it's reminding me of what I was saying to you lot, I think last month or the month before. Like, you can't use a mechanism that can't make you a certain amount of money and think you're going to make that amount of money. All you're doing is banging your head on a glass ceiling. And it's glass because it gives you the perception it's not really there. But that ceiling is there. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. Okay, bro, but what you're doing, you can't become a millionaire like that. Even the people that became millionaires in your industry, who you think became millionaires like that, they didn't become millionaires like that. They became millionaires because they were doing this next to that. And you don't know about the this. This is why you don't know about the this. Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Excuse me, chapter 10. Listen. Verse 6. This is why you don't know the other thing they were doing. Because the rich sit in low place. Because the thing they were doing that was actually of value, they didn't shout and scream about it. And because they didn't shout and scream about it, you're not even aware of it. So you think, oh, because you're a plumber and he's a plumber and he's made the bank, you can make the bank as a plumber, but you don't know it's not because he's a plumber. You don't know it's because he actually had an uncle who's a politician who gave him a contract in a place where they didn't even pay him the rate. They paid him some stupid rate because they had to get rid of money in a short period of time. That's how he made the bank. So what happens is you're chasing something that's impossible for you to actually get. Does this make sense?
Yes, sir.
So here's the thing you need to ask yourself sometimes. In how many areas in my life do I have value in something that is not valuable? In how many areas in my life do I have value, do I ascribe value, do I apply value to something that's not of value? How many areas of my life do I see foolishness and actually esteem it? And see riches and make it low? Like, this is like, I don't think we understand how wicked a world we live in right now. Like, we live in a world where the mainstream media, which is what most people are watching, is indoctrinating you for failure. We live in a world where mainstream education is indoctrinating you for failure. Like, I don't know if you, like, you can't get worse than that. Let me tell you what's worse than that. Okay, do you really want to know what's worse than that? All right, and I apologize because I'm going to tell you the truth. Do you really want to know what is worse than the mainstream media indoctrinating you for failure and the education system indoctrinating you for failure? Do you really want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. The only thing worse than that is when they've had enough time for that failure to manifest. There is nothing worse than that. Mainstream media speaks or attempts to speak to everybody. Education attempts to train everybody. So the only thing worse than an education system and a mainstream media system, which is training you for failure, is when that failure actually shows up. This is why so many people are so lost in their life. Because they spent their whole life trying to get ahead with a curriculum that's made to put them behind. This is why it can feel like, but I'm doing everything I can. Well, a computer with a faulty, corrupt, broken software system is guaranteed to fail. It doesn't matter if you're doing everything you can. The program's written for you to fail. And unless you, Romans chapter 12 verse 2, which means renew your mind, you're going to fail. You have to fail. And you're not failing because you want to fail. You're failing because the curriculum you're using is a failed curriculum. And you cannot lose. So you're going to succeed. You're going to win in a failing thing. You see, we need to start to understand how important it is to actually do what the Bible says and not just read what the Bible says. Like when the Bible tells you that there are foolish things being ascribed high, don't be that person who says to yourself, oh no, I don't ascribe anything foolish high. Because you're doing the thing we spoke about earlier, you're being proud and you're stopping yourself from your cup being filled up. And David said, my cup runneth over. Do you know why his cup runneth over? Because he recognized I don't have enough in my cup. It doesn't matter how much I've got, I need more. And I do not know my capacity. So I'm going to allow God to fill me up. And when I feel full, I'm going to allow God to fill me up. And when I feel full, I'm going to allow God to fill me up. And this is why it does not surprise me that David was the person who said, once you have spoken, but twice I've heard. Because I need you to